Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Parenting Autism podcast. I want to start out this show with a little disclaimer. Throughout the program, you'll probably hear Bryce in the background yelling or screaming, and I'm sure a lot of parents can relate to that while your son or daughter is playing a game. So from time to time, you'll hear that in the background, and you never know when Bryce might pop in also into the studio here and say something. But this particular episode, he doesn't, but you can still hear him in the background. And he just got a new game, and he's really enjoying it. So we hope that's not too distracting for our audience today. So this is a special Mother's Day episode, and I hope you enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of Parenting Autism. I have a special guest mommy on with us today. Her name is Sandy Coulter. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, honey.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate that.
I think mothers are terrific people. I don't even know how they accomplish everything that they do. They are just super multitaskers, and you're no exception. And I just want to thank you for all that you do for us. And it's really incredible. I don't know how you guys do all that stuff. And you know, when you have a special needs kid, I think your game just needs to be that much higher and more alert, and you tackled that, you know, effortlessly. And you just, you know, all the special needs moms out there, I just think you're a level of extra special, and it shows.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So we're going to change up the format today a little bit, and I'm going to be asking you questions about motherhood and all that comes with it. And so if you're ready, we'll start off.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on as your special guest today. And I just feel like I should maybe preface this that I am a little emotional because Mother's Day has always been an emotional day for me. It used to be filled with sadness, and now it's filled with happiness, but I just have like a whole mix of emotions that goes on. So I felt like I should say that because I really don't know what questions you're going to ask me. So if they trigger tears, my apologies to the audience. Hopefully I can get through this okay.
Sure. So, you know, I think most women, they probably think about motherhood at some point in their life. And as guys, we really don't know what that point is. You know, speaking from a guy, you know, I really didn't think about that being a parent until later in life. But what about you being a mom? When did it first occur to you that one day you might be a mom, or that you'd like to be a mom? I
always thought I would be a mom. I don't even think there was a day that it was like, oh, that sounds cool. It was just something that has been in me as long as I can remember. I was not a person who played with baby dolls. You know, I was not. I had 3 brothers, so I was more of a tomboy in that regard. But I always loved the real babies. Like at church, I always worked in the nursery, and I loved it when somebody had babies, and I loved little kids. And as soon as I was old enough to be trusted, I was a babysitter. And actually, I watched my younger brothers for my parents a lot, you know. And so it was just something that I always thought just would naturally happen, which is why I think it was more surprising when it was a much more challenging, longer, difficult road than I ever thought it would be. But it's always been in my heart to be a mommy.
Okay. And so when you were growing up, How did your mom play into that? What was your mom like when you were growing up? What do you remember?
Well, I'm a little older, so I just always remember my mom being at home. And I say I'm a little older because I think in this era, there's a lot of parents that both work. I don't even know if they had daycares when I was growing up. So I only knew of my mom being home. My earliest memories is she would play with me. She would color with me. That always made me happy if she would sit and color with me. She would be there when I came home from school. She would pack our lunch before we went to school. She even made my clothes, which I do remember that part actually. I mean, she made them when I was little, but she would always make me a brand new dress for Easter, probably until 8th grade, 9th grade, I think. And then my Aunt Bonnie started buying me dresses. So yeah, she was a fantastic example for me growing up. And again, I think I wanted to just be like her and be a mommy.
Was she a big multitasker?
Yeah, she still is.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's taught me if I'm walking from one end of the house to the other end of the house, how many things can I do from one end to the other?
Yes, I see you doing that often. Yes.
Yeah, so. She doesn't sit still much.
Yeah. So what was her angle on discipline in your household? Was she the disciplinarian, or how did she handle that in stressful situations?
Let's see. No, I would not consider her the ultimate disciplinarian. My dad was definitely the one that you feared more. And I don't want to say fear, but you know what I mean? You know who you're going to get your spanks from would be my dad. My mom, she really wasn't, I don't remember her yelling or screaming or anything like that. But there were times we definitely got in trouble. Trust me, I pushed her buttons and tested her. And so if we were outside, my memories are that she would grab a switch off the tree and whack my legs with it, which I was wearing shorts.
Well, tell everybody what a switch is in case they don't know.
You don't know. A switch would be like a long stick off of a bush.
Okay.
Okay, so I lived in Indiana, so I was in the Midwest, and I only remember her doing that because, again, there were times that I'd be getting in trouble with her, and I would try to run away from her. I was 7, 8, 9, I don't know, but she usually, she would save the big stuff for Dad and be like, when your father gets home. So, if you heard those words, you went and you padded up, because you knew he was coming home soon.
Right.
But I remember her definitely more as she was very affectionate. And she still is, and she loves to give good hugs, and I just remember that more so than the discipline. Although I received it and I deserved it. Yeah, but that's not really what I think of.
Right, and I guess you'd probably consider her a classic mom from that time period of. She would do the laundry, she would do the cooking and the cleaning.
Yes, we rarely ate out.
Right,
she cooked meals, and. It was a big deal if we ate out, actually. So, she did all what would be deemed the household chores. I think I've heard Dad was the head of the house and Mom was the heart of the house.
Right.
I think that's a good way to put it.
And it sounds like you spent a lot of time with her, which is important.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. So, moving along through teenage and 20s, 30s, and when we got married, do you remember how we met?
I knew of you through a mutual friend that I went to school with and that you worked with. And she had told me about you. And then I had run into you with her a couple different times, once at a restaurant and one time at the movies, at the mall. And then eventually when you started going to church with them, they also went to my church. Then I think we went out to church, the four of us after that, which I said it would be platonic because...
We went out to church?
I mean, I can't talk. We went out to lunch after church. Thank you for correcting that.
Okay.
We went out to lunch after church, and we were just friends, which was great because at that time in my life, I just needed a friend, and Nothing more. And that's how we met.
Didn't I help you move something at some point?
Yeah. At that same time that you had started going to church with them, I had sold my house. Okay. And I was moving over to the island. And so
I came over to help you.
Those friends had purchased, they took my curios because they were storing them for me because I didn't have space at the condo.
Oh.
So, yeah, you did come over to my house and you helped move some furniture.
Oh, okay, cool.
I forgot about that part. But yes, that was a good memory.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
And you met my mom that day, actually, and she said, "He's a nice boy, Sandy." I said, "Mom, not now. Thank you."
Right. So after we got married, do you remember any discussions we had about having kids?
We didn't talk about it much. We were older at that point, so we were 35 when we started dating and 36 when we got married. And I'm sure we talked about kids some, but I really thought I couldn't have children because I had been previously married and I had tried for pretty much all of my 20s. I did not have any birth control protection, and I wanted to be a mommy since I was 18. And had gotten married. God protected me. I see all of that now, but there was no medical reason why I couldn't have a child.
Right.
It was just God's protection over me. Sometimes he doesn't answer our prayers because he knows the bigger picture, but I really thought at that point that I couldn't. So we never had to discuss me taking birth control or doing anything like that. And I think we both were in agreement that at this point in our life, if it were to happen, that would be fine. But if it didn't, we were just fine.
Yeah, I think we were doing a lot of traveling early on, and we were really enjoying that. And
I was at peace with it at that time. I had already grieved not having children. I had one particular day that I was completely sad because I had already named my children in my head. You know, I was seriously wanting to be a mommy. And I remember just crying and grieving, and God gave me peace, and I accepted that was not what was meant for me. And so I poured all of my mommy love into my nieces and my nephews, into the children that I ministered to at church, and other people's children that needed that love. Yeah. So
it was a little while after we got married that we first found out that you were pregnant. Do you remember
the very first time?
Yeah.
So the very first time we were 38. So it was like 2 years after we were married. And it was pretty shocking. And we were saying we're 38, and we were like, how old was your mom when she had you? Because your mom was older.
Yeah.
And so you're like, I think she was 38. So she didn't live locally. And so we called her and we said, you said to her, "So how old were you when you had me?" And she's like, "I don't know. I think 38. And you're like, "Oh, because Sandy's going to have a baby too. And she's 38. And there was a pause, and she said, "Good luck with that."
Yeah.
That's what I remember. And we both started laughing. And then a couple years later, when we shared that with her, she's like, "I said that? I'm so sorry." But
it was right off the cuff.
It was right off the cuff. So she must have thought that having a child later in life was kind of exhausting.
Yeah, well, I can kind of relate to that.
Yeah. So she knew. But at that particular time, that pregnancy only lasted 9 weeks. So, it didn't happen at 38.
Yeah. So then we went second time around. And tell us about that one.
Okay, so my second pregnancy, again, shocking, because I think after I got pregnant the first time when I was 38, and I was so surprised that I could get pregnant. I think I had a little bit of hope come back. And so then like every, month, I'd be like counting down in my head and waiting, and then it wasn't happening. And I didn't grieve that time like I did when I was, 31, 32. But I kind of just accepted that, well, I guess if God wants this to happen, it'll happen. And we moved on, and life was busy and life was good, and we traveled. And then this was when we were 40. I had just turned 43, because I remember we were over at my mom's, and she said something like, why don't you just go ahead and adopt, because you know how much you love children. And I said, Mom, I am 42. I am tired, and that ship has sailed. And you said, you just turned 43. I go, and thank you for that reminder. And that would be all the more reason that I do not need to have a baby right now. Because we had never talked about adoption like on a serious level, but we just knew that we loved kids. We both loved kids. But we enjoyed, again, our nephews and nieces and our little children that we ministered to at church. But I really had just accepted, no, it's okay. And then we had gone away for a trip to New York. And when we came back, we had brought back a visitor that we didn't know about from New York. Mm-hmm. And so I remember right when we got back from New York and before I knew I was pregnant, we had gone to a baby shower for our friends. And it was their miracle baby that they had prayed for many years. And they were a year or two older than us at that time. Mm-hmm. So they were in their mid-40s. And I know their church had anointed and prayed over them. And she had lost several babies through miscarriage as well, more than we had. And we were at their shower, and it was so exciting. And I said to you, there's this little piece of me that would still love to be a mommy. And I had my fingers a little bit apart, and you said, put it down, like on the table. I did, and you put your hand down and you squashed it. Like, no. And I started laughing because I knew you were coming from. We were laughing, and I'm like, I know. It sounds crazy. I said, but I just feel like I feel her happiness, and I'm like, wow, I still yearned a little. I didn't know that, but I did. Because Mother's Day was, like I said, always a sad day for me in many ways. So anyway, it was just a week or two after that I took the test and could not believe that I was seeing it was positive. And when I showed it to you, you didn't even know what it was. Like, you didn't even know what the test was. And then you were just truly in shock. Like, it took you days.
I think I said, wow, like 7 times.
Yeah. And oh boy. And I remember we told my parents, and it was just like, oh boy. Yeah. Like, they couldn't believe it, and we couldn't believe it. And it was pretty shocking.
Your whole world changes when that happens. You think about so many other things in the future, when you discover that you're pregnant. And so it's kind of a shock.
It changes the whole dynamic of your world.
Sure.
Yeah. So I remember that very clearly. Did you want me to talk further about that?
Well, sure. I think your experience, somebody else listening may have had a similar experience to yours, and it may help somebody.
Okay. Well, so we found out we were pregnant, and actually this time I was really nauseous, like very sick to my stomach, and every day I felt it. And I did not feel that with my first pregnancy. And so I was told that was a good sign, that if you felt sickness, that means things are happening in there, and that's a good sign. And when we went for our 8-week ultrasound for the first time, we got to see a heartbeat of our child, because we did not get to see that the first time. And so, yeah, it was pretty amazing seeing that heartbeat and knowing there was really a live baby inside. It was becoming real at that point.
Yeah.
But I think I still had a little bit of caution. I don't know why. Maybe it was God protecting me. But I still had a little bit of caution. As I explained to one friend, I couldn't see the nursery yet. Not on my mind,
Yeah.
But then we got to 12 weeks. Again, I was feeling pretty sick. My belly's starting to pop out. a little bit. Clothes weren't fitting. So all the normal, natural things were happening. And that particular day, they did not do an ultrasound. They measured, and they listened to the heartbeat. And the heartbeat was really strong, and everything was good. But when we had gone to our 8-week appointment, there was something that they saw on there that was a concern. They weren't overly concerned about it, not with the baby, but with the sac that the baby was in. Mm-hmm. And so I had asked about that, and then they said, well, do you want to look again? I said, yeah, I think I'd feel better if we did. So they scheduled us for an ultrasound for the following week. So that's when I was 13 weeks. And then we went in, and I definitely remember that day. And they asked the lady doing the ultrasound, wanted to know if we had done any pre-genetic testing. And I said, no. And she's like, so you didn't do any of the testing that they asked you to do? I'm like, no, because if there's a problem, I'm not going to terminate the pregnancy anyway. That's just not what I would do. And so she was very quiet. She left the room. So I figured something wasn't good. She went and got the doctor. But I had no idea. And then she came back, asked me to get cleaned up, and that the doctor wanted to see us in his office.
Yeah.
So we knew something was wrong. We just had no idea what it was. And then it ended up being that they could see that our baby had something was wrong. There was fluid on his brain.
And his head was
the
shape of it.
Yeah, they could do that. Another clue they said was that his feet were crossed at the ankles. Who would have known? I honestly thought that was just cute. I'm like, oh, look, he's got his little feet crossed. Yeah. Actually, we said it because we didn't know if it was a boy or girl at that time, which we did learn that it was a boy because they did testing. So they had to do testing, and they found out to confirm that he had chromosome or trisomy 18.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know if it was 13 or 18. But it was 18, which just means he had an extra 18th chromosome. So they prepared us that the likelihood of me going full term was slim. If it did happen, most of the babies don't live past the first day, or they have to immediately go in for open heart surgery because they have defective hearts. They offered if we wanted to terminate the pregnancy that day. And I said, no. I mean, we had no idea. It could have gone 20 weeks. It could have gone the whole term. We didn't know, but we were just going to pray it out. And so that's what we did. So we prayed it out, and we had a lot of people praying for us. And obviously this was very devastating because we waited all this time, and then it's kind of like having somebody give you something and then taking it away,
Yeah.
But I really did lean into God. I mean, I'm very grateful that I have that relationship, because had I not been able to do that, I don't know, I probably would have sunk into a very deep depression. But I just leaned into him for his will and for what was going to happen. I was still feeling sick. At that time, I didn't feel any movement, which it's probably, my mom even said, I'm so glad you're not feeling the baby move, because it would have been more devastating to feel the baby move and then not feel the baby move.
Yeah, that's true.
So that was another layer of protection in my emotional protection that I'm grateful for. And we did get to see him the next week when we went to the specialist. And he was still alive then, but we knew it wasn't going to be much longer. You could tell that he's kind of weak. And then when we went back at 17 weeks, then he was gone. And then that was right before Thanksgiving, and then the hospital was closed. And that was like Wednesday that they told me. And then I was scheduled for Monday to have the procedure. But God allowed me to just naturally have the miscarriage at home. And I didn't have to go through anything more traumatic. So again, another layer of emotional protection.
Yeah.
And then they actually did the ultrasound on Monday. I kept my appointment. We went in. They did the ultrasound. They said I was clear. So I didn't have to have any type of procedure. So that was very helpful. But, we have our pictures, and we have actually lots of keepsakes. And we named him Malachi for God's messenger, because I knew God had a message through this for people. And I was pretty open about sharing everything, because a lot of people, treat it like a secret or like there's some shame in it, but there is no shame in it. I mean, it's just all part of life and all part of God's planning. And he woke my system up. He brought life to my body that had not been there before, because the first pregnancy was what they called an empty sac. So even though my body thought it was pregnant, we never saw a baby. But this time we heard the heartbeat, we saw the baby, and I had life inside of me, and my body knew it. And then my body and my mind wanted it again. And he had to leave us to make room for Bryce, because then Bryce came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our special guy.
Yeah.
And
that was 5 weeks later. 5 weeks after we lost Malachi. Again, we travel well. We went on a cruise and came home with a visitor, unbeknownst to us. But that was Bryce. And then that was actually a very beautiful pregnancy. I was still sick, but everything went really well. We didn't even have to see the specialist, so yay.
What do you remember about the day that Bryce was born?
I remember that I was very calm and at peace about everything. I really was. It's one of those things, like, the further I got into the pregnancy, I'm like, man, this is like a roller coaster where you're on the ride now and you can't get off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're going up the hill, and at some point, you're going to have to come down that hill. And I didn't know what it would be like, but I made it a point to not watch Lama's videos of deliveries or listen to anybody else's traumatic stories, because my story was going to be my story. And what happened to one person is not necessarily going to happen to me. So I remember it being a very peaceful day. I know it was a long day, but it didn't feel that long to me. Everything was great. And then when I finally was able to push him out and held him, there really aren't words to explain that other than absolute joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, hearing him coo and seeing him for the first time, and all
We
of us
sang
there.
Happy Birthday.
Yeah, it was really amazing.
It was. It was a beautiful,
very beautiful moment. It was like
delivery.
the wee hours too, so the hospital was quiet. It was like 2:20 in the morning.
What did you love about being pregnant with him?
I think I loved, I did love my belly, till it got really big and I was done. But I loved feeling him move inside of me probably the most, and seeing him move inside of me was kind of crazy. Like I had an alien inside of me. But I'm really glad I got the experience of actually feeling life inside of me, not just the sickness, but the actual life and him moving and getting hiccups. And that was always cute when he would get the hiccups inside.
Yeah, that was cute. Yeah. As I think we went over in one of our prior episodes, everything that we went through with him.
I kind of shared Malachi before too, but it's Mother's Day.
The day after,
and this is Mother's Day, so.
Yeah, so tell us about what happened then.
Well, so he was born, like I said, at like 2:20 in the morning. I had not eaten because I couldn't eat all day, and we had been there since 5 o'clock the prior morning. And we knew the kitchen was closing, so they ordered me my dinner and said that they'd heat it up for me after I delivered. And so I do remember after we got me all stitched up and him cleaned up, and we took all our pictures and sang happy birthday and stuff, and Mom was there with us, and my sister-in-law Carla was there, and our niece Jessica, who was a little traumatized.
Yes.
But so it was special having some family there too. And then I had my meal, and then at that point I was tired, and so I was able to sleep. And so then the next day when we woke up, we had some visitors that came to visit on that Sunday in the morning, and then actually they came later on Saturday, I'm sorry, because he was born like 2:20 a.m. So they came, we had some visitors the next morning, my brothers and their wives, a couple of them were able to come, and so we just had a great day with him. Actually, I nursed him that day, and he took right to it and did so well. And they left him in the room with us for a little period of time, so we could get used to being with him. And he slept in our room. He actually slept in our room that night, on Saturday night. And then Sunday morning, you had gone home to shower and stuff, I think. And then they came in and said that they needed to take him to the nursery. And so that was fine with me. I mean, that was around 10, and I went to sleep. And so I later learned, after I woke up, the lady that oversees the NICU was in my room and wanted to know if anybody had told me about my baby.
Yeah.
When a stranger is standing in your doorway with a solemn look on her face and says, "Has anyone told you about your baby?" Let me just tell you that your mind can go 1,000 places in one time. But I was just like, no. And then she introduced herself to tell me that she was over the NICU.
And that they had tried to come in earlier, but you were sleeping.
I was asleep, and the doctor didn't want to wake me up. And they got him under control, but that he had stopped breathing while he was in the nursery. And they had to bag him because he had turned blue. And I don't know how long he didn't receive oxygen. We don't know that. We know that they had to react quickly. The nurses were like, "Why? He was just fine." The doctor's like, "Do it." That's the story we got. So anyway, by the time I woke up and they told me that, I don't even think you were back to the hospital yet. And
I think I was in the room when they came in.
Were you in there for that?
Yeah, and they said,
okay, so maybe they waited for you to come back. It's kind of a blur.
I was in there with you when they came in and
then
said
you
that.
had come back and they said it. Yeah. And then, it was full on panic mode at that point. But actually, I can't say it was panic, but it was also prayer time. Like, we immediately put out the prayer chain to everybody. And that was on Sunday morning. And so, we didn't know what was going on. And he continuously just stopped breathing, and they were trying to get answers. And I just couldn't understand how this could even be happening with all we had already gone through. And here we thought we finally had our baby, and then we might lose the baby again. I'm like, ooh, this would be a tough one.
And
that would be a really hard one.
The doctor came in and said, I think he said something like, "I don't know that we're equipped to handle this type of situation. You may want to have him transferred to another hospital. We think it could be an infection. It could be, they said, a few different things that it could be, but they weren't exactly sure."
Right. And I think we were already thinking we need to get him someplace else.
Yeah.
Because they were treating him immediately for infection.
But it was not helping anything.
But they weren't seeing any type of results. So, yeah. So that's what happened there. And then when I got discharged on Monday morning, then later that I had time to come home and get some clothes. And then we turned right around and went to Miami Children's.
Yeah.
And he went down by ambulance. And then we got answers, and we learned that it was a brain hemorrhage, which in our terms that we understood also was a stroke. It was a grade 4, which is the worst, which just meant that it wasn't contained. It had spread to other areas of his brain. But the blessing was that he did not have to have brain surgery. Mm-hmm. The bleeding did stop. And even though he has an extremely large area of his brain that has been damaged and is still to this day showing like it's like a volcano that has activity and could erupt, but God has not allowed it to erupt.
As far as the
but we
seizure
saw
goes,
that on the MRI and what's going on there. But yeah, I mean, he's a miracle in itself. That's just all I can say.
Yeah.
God has truly given us a miracle. The prayers that went up for him to not only just live, but to recover, to be able to walk and have his motor skills and to know who we were. And he could have had traumatic brain injury damage because he lost oxygen for such a long period of time. Mm-hmm. Plus, he also had the blood that was damaging areas of his brains, particularly for vision and for walking and gross motor skills. But his brain rewired, and he actually hit all those milestones, and he was doing fantastic. Yeah. So it was true joy. But I will say this, the gift of motherhood in itself is one thing. But when you have the gift of being given a child that you almost lose, really, you almost lose the day after you receive him into your arms, and you're told by these doctors and these specialists based on statistics, they're not trying to be negative, but they're trying to prepare you. We don't know. He may be blind. He may be this. He may be that.
He may not live.
He may not live. We think he will, but he may not. You celebrate every day, and you celebrate every little thing that maybe other parents take for granted. Mm-hmm. And so to me, I've had the gift of celebration with Bryce literally every single day, because the first day we celebrated that he was born. The second day we celebrated that he was breathing. Mm-hmm. And that he continued to breathe. And then every little thing, when the seizure stopped, we celebrated. When this happened, he celebrated. There was so many things to celebrate about this special little guy. And the autism part, I think we had maybe slowed down our celebrations a little bit because we thought we were out of the woods once he turned 2. Mm-hmm. And then the regression started losing his language, started not looking at us anymore, stopped recognizing Mama and Papa, had anxiety to see anybody. I mean, we just totally lost who he was, had to get him help again. And then we started celebrating, and we continue to celebrate every little thing about this guy. So once again, I have had the gift of celebration restored.
Yes.
Yeah, as a mommy.
There was a lot of sleepless nights there in the beginning, and a lot of heavy leaning on God for him to bring us through that. And
God continues to bring us through this.
Yes.
I mean, I have a scripture on our wall that God had given me, that verse in Miami, and it's from Isaiah, and how he holds our hand. And that's why I have a picture of me and you holding Bryce's hands and swinging him, because he held our hand through all of this, and he continues to hold our hand on this autism journey. And we have to remember, I don't like to dwell on it, but Bryce is very susceptible to seizures because he does have that damaged area on his brain. And ironically enough, autistic children are very prone to have seizures. Yeah. So he's got like 2 big reasons as to why he could have seizures, and we have to watch that. But I just trust God. I really do. And he's done a fine job so far, and I just trust his will as I continue to just take this gift of motherhood and this beautiful boy that he's given me.
What do you think has given you the most joy about being a mom?
Ooh, what has given me the most joy about being a mom? I think Bryce's joy gives me the most joy about being a mom. That boy, as you can hear him yelling in the background possibly. No, seriously, that boy, he exudes so much joy. He's just a happy boy.
He is a happy boy.
He does not even have a clue what's happening.
No. He's just, and that helps us that he's so joyful. He doesn't know what autism is. He
doesn't know he's different.
No.
He doesn't know all that he's gone through and all he's overcome.
Yeah. And one day we'll be able to tell him what he's been through, that he's been such a blessing to us, And
I'm sorry, but he is just a genuinely happy boy. He's so joyful. He's so loving, and he's very affectionate. And I told you, thank you, as Chris passes me tissues. I have told you before, I'm an affectionate person, so my love language is hugs. And the fact that he loves hugs.
He loves hugs.
I'm so grateful, because if he was on the other end of the spectrum where he was sensitive to touch, it would be hard for me.
Yes. Right now he's in this phase of, he's always saying, give me a big hug. And we just love hugs, and they're so sincere, and they feel so good. There's, I don't know, you just can't describe a hug from your own kid. It's just...
Yeah. And he doesn't use the words, I love you, Mommy. He just hasn't figured out how to quite express that yet.
Yeah.
Except for that one time when he did, and that was my gift, and I appreciate it. But he strokes my face, constantly kissing me on the cheek.
Yeah. He shows you love.
I would rather him show me love like that than just be telling me that.
And he shows you a lot of love. He's a mama's boy, for sure, for sure.
So, yeah, his joy, his love is the biggest joy of being a mommy.
So, what advice would you have for the next generation, if anybody's listening out there that has a new addition to their family? What advice would you give to them? What would you wish for them? And what's most important to remember?
I think my advice, and this is probably again because I'm older, and I think when you become a mom when you're older, it's very different than when you become a mom when you're younger. When you're younger, you're probably still trying to figure it out along with the kids. When you're older, you've kind of had your life experiences, and now you can share those with your children, and you parent in a different way, or at least you would hope so, based on life and maturity. But having said that, like my mom, she didn't have distractions of internet and cell phones and texting and all of that when I was a kid. So I remember having a lot of her time, and I really make it a point to spend time with Bryce. And listen, it's not 24/7 because I have to have my own sanity too. But I put a timer on my phone so that I only have so much social media a day. So if I don't even realize that it's distracting me because somebody's sending me messages, or not even if I'm initiating it, but responding, it cuts me off. You know, those are the kind of things, like I heard someone say the other day, and it's so true. This is not a dress rehearsal. You have one chance. You have one time to be the mom to this child. And to this child, that's not to say you won't have other children later, but you want to do it right for this child. And so I really want to do it right for Bryce. I want him to feel my love, which I know he does. I know he does. I love on that boy all the time, and that's why he loves back. Mm-hmm. But, you know, he has language delays. He has a lot of special needs that he needs my help. Sometimes I feel guilty that I don't do enough for him, but then I have to remind myself that I'm human and there's only so much I can do.
Yeah.
And I can't make him all better, in quotes, overnight. It is a long, slow, consistent process. It's the turtle race. It's not the rabbit race.
Yeah.
And, so I just have to set my own goals. So like this year I set the goal that I was going to read to him more, because I feel like that's really good quality time to spend together. And that's my advice, is finding those connections and quality time. And Bryce really wasn't interested in books. I mean, he was 5 and still it was very difficult to get him to sit and go through a whole book with us. Mm-hmm. But I was just determined that even if he wasn't paying attention, I would read him. And of course, we're trying to find books that are topics that he likes.
Sure.
And then some that are not, because I want to expand his interest. But now he asks to read the books with me. And when I got my little Mother's Day page, there was a paper that his school gave me that he had answered questions. And I had shared it on Facebook. And it was really sweet because his teacher, knowing his circumstances, said she gave him like 3 days to answer questions. They keep coming back and asking so that he would give authentic answers. But he said what he'd like to do with me, it was read books. And that really spoke to me because he's recognizing that that's something that we're doing together. And so that's really just my advice. Find something to do together. Find your common ground with your kids. And let them, when they grow up, they're not going to remember the toys that you bought them. they're going to remember what you did with them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my mom sitting on the floor and coloring with me. That's what I remember. I could not tell you what she bought me for my 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th birthday. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember her sitting and taking time to play with me. That's what I remember.
Very good. So last question. Let's say somebody in our audience is listening and they have a son or daughter who is just diagnosed with autism. Mm-hmm. And they feel overwhelmed like we all did when we got the diagnosis.
Like we still sometimes do.
Yes. And you don't know where to turn or what to do. What advice would you give those families after just receiving that kind of news?
That's a great question. Pretty broad. I would definitely say if you can find other parents, finding a podcast like this of people who are walking the journey, finding local groups that are also walking the journey or who have walked the journey, because it can feel very, very, very lonely. And the loneliness, especially in the beginning, because we're talking about in the beginning, like when you first get that diagnosis, your children are usually 2, 3, 4 years old. And it's difficult to go out in public. It's difficult to go to a restaurant. It's difficult to go to a store. And so it's easier to stay home. It's easier to isolate yourself, to stay in your safe place. But then you start feeling more loneliness. And that's not good. It's not good. And so I think one of the best things for me was being introduced to a few local moms that Bryce's therapists were also working with. And they introduced, we started doing bowling. Mm-hmm. And I got to meet some of the moms at the lanes. That was a big deal for me because I all of a sudden felt like I'm not the only one. They get it. Because try as they may, my other friends or people in my circle, if you haven't actually walked down this path, you want to get it, mm-hmm. but you don't get it.
Right.
And they do get it.
Yeah.
And some of them have been there ahead. So, and I know that Bryce will not exactly be like their children, but they have some insight.
They do.
They also have some encouragement to say, hey, this will get better. It's not saying it's going to be easy, but I'm telling you, some things get easier, some things come, some things go. You think you're never going to get out of this particular season. It'll pass. Now, it may come back again, but it'll pass, but then there'll be another one right behind it. That's definitely what we've experienced. But, yes, like for example, today we went out for lunch for Mother's Day. I usually will try to pick a restaurant that is loud, that Bryce can be louder without it being a big issue.
And one that he can handle the loudness of.
And one that he can handle the loudness of, because we have that sensitivity. But like today, he definitely was a little louder than the norm. He accidentally spilt his water. Then you had the whole sensory thing of water on his shorts, and his iPad on the bed. There's just like all these escalated things. Is it a nice hot date romantic lunch that you and I might enjoy if we went to Outback? No. But we learn how to make it work, and I'm determined to not pack it up and then just go home and to give up, because we've got to learn to work through these things. And that's what I want to encourage every parent out there, whether you're new to this journey or whether you're, just still going through it after a couple years or maybe many years. But on those days that you just want to go to that island that I dream about, where it's just, the three of us and we don't have to worry about anything else, that's not reality. You just have to kind of find that peace. And I have a Bible verse actually that has really helped me. So I'm going to share this, and whether you have a relationship with Jesus or not, I find this verse to be very encouraging. And I have it printed in several places. It's here in my office. I have it in the kitchen near where I do the dishes. I have it in the bathroom where I get ready. I have it in my car. I have it in my office. But it's from Psalm 119, 114. And it says, "You are my place of quiet retreat. I wait for your word to renew me." And I can't tell you how many times that verse has helped me, because in this maddening world of autism, you can get a lot of noises in your head. Literal ones from your child who, makes all these loud, unusual noises, to all these voices in your head of discouragement, of depression, of fear, of the unknown. What's he going to be like? Is he ever going to get married? Is he ever going to be live independently? Is he ever going to be able to have a job? Is he ever going to be able to talk and have a conversation? I mean, there's all these things that can be in your head, and you want to just take your head off so that you can have some peace and quiet. God gave me that verse. It's really helped me. I'll say it again. You are my place of quiet retreat. I wait for your word to renew me. And the other verse that he gave me that I also wrote out was, "And now, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about these things that are excellent and worthy of praise." And that's in Philippians 4:8. We choose what we want to think about. We could easily choose to think about all of the negative things, because they're there. They are up and in the face. And sometimes you have to dig deeper to think on the positive things. But if you want my real advice and what's got me to where I can sit here and be at peace and be happy, that it's my relationship with Jesus, and it's the word.
Very good. Very good. I think the word has helped us along this journey very much.
Excuse me. This cold is awful.
I know.
On Mother's Day.
It's going around. So is there anything you want to cap us out with? Any final thoughts?
I think that in closing, I would just say that what used to be such a sad day for me, thankfully, is now such a beautiful day for me. And I'm just extremely grateful that God has given me this gift. And I want to encourage everyone out there that is listening to just hug your child, love your child, and know that you're an amazing parent. God chose you for your child. And so sometimes when you feel like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, this is too hard, this is so hard, just know that if God chose you, he will equip you. He will give you what you need. He will give you the strength you need. He will give you the wisdom you need. You just have to turn to him for it and listen to him and thank him for your blessings and see the positive in this whole situation. And I just think that's what it's all about for me.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you for sharing with us today.
You're welcome.
And I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you.
And so to all of our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in this week. And we hope you enjoyed the program. And we'll look forward to seeing you and talking to you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.